everyone, and welcome to our Partner Spotlight series, where we shine a light on some of our partners and find out about their businesses, how they might be able to help you, and what makes them tick. Our guest today is Matt Jones from the Tradie Web Guys. Hi, Matt, and welcome.
G'day, g'day.
It's nice to have you on board. You're a little bit more of an expert than this sort of stuff than me, but hopefully we can do a good job of it today.
It's nice to be interviewed instead of the one doing the interviews.
Yeah, I thought that might be a little bit weird for you, someone asking you questions instead of you probing.
Yeah, it's normally the way. After 214 episodes that went live yesterday, Wednesday.
That's a lot.
And you featured on the show a couple of times as well?
Yes, I have. I've been on the other side. It is, I have to say, it is much different. I've been on the opposite side and being the one asking questions. I feel like I'm under more pressure than what I was when you were asking the questions.
Well, you are, because if you screw it up, it's going to fall back on you.
That's right. I'm the one that looks stupid. But that's right. I've got 4 kids. I'm used to looking stupid all the time.
Right.
So
yeah.
So
having 4 kids is testament to being stupid enough, isn't it?
Well, that's what they say. Everyone keeps asking what went wrong, but I do love them. I do love them most of the time.
Disclaimer.
Yes, that's right. Hey, you're only one down, so you've got.
I've got a way to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, what's the short version of how you got to where you are now? So, this is your origin story. Let's call it.
Well, it depends. Are we talking about the digital agency? Are we talking about the podcast? Or are we talking about both?
Well, let's do it all. How did you? Obviously, once upon a time, you were doing something different to what you're doing now.
So I'm originally a plumber. So I grew up on the North Shore of Sydney, and I did my apprenticeship on the North Shore of Sydney. And like a lot of young Australian kids, when I finished my apprenticeship, I went traveling for a few years, and I went over to Canada and America and Europe. Had a blast. Probably things I can't talk about on the podcast, but we'll leave that one to your imagination.
Yeah.
But while I was away, I started, in the final year of traveling anyway, while I was living in London, I started taking a real interest in business. And I started reading a lot of business books. And I'd never really been much of a reader. I'd never been academic either, actually. And it's probably worth saying that for some of the listeners and viewers out there, where I don't know, that's one of the reasons, which I'm getting to in a minute, where we started the Sideshed podcast. But I was never academic. And, when I finished school, I was kind of, I could either gone to university and struggled like I did at school, or I could have gone into a trade. So I decided to go into a trade. One of the big messages I like to dispel through the podcast is doing a trade is not a fallback. Like, it can actually be a really valuable.
It's a valid choice.
Very valid career option. I have to apologise for my camera. I'm having issues with the camera, so if it focuses in and out a little bit, you have to excuse me. I was started reading a lot of business books, taking a lot of interest, and when I came back to Sydney, I took a job. I actually started a plumbing company. I got burnt by a builder, which ended that after a few years, and then I went into a sales and marketing role for a plumbing company, and we were effectively bringing products and solutions in out of Europe and North America, and we were distributing them through Asia Pacific. So during that, I suppose, part of my life, I learned a lot about the right and probably more about the wrong ways or the wrong things to be doing in business. And I noticed that we had a lot of clients at that point in time that were buying these high ticket items off us for, $250,000 plus, and not being able to market them. So to cut a long story short, that kind of led me down the path of setting up a company that does websites and marketing solutions for tradies. And that was going on 8 or 9 years ago now, and it's been growing leaps and bounds. So that company's called Tradie Web Guys, as you alluded to before, and we basically do just that. We help trade businesses with website platforms. We help them with their customer relationship management tools and managing their sales funnels and lead flows and email automation, all that kind of carry on. And then, of course, marketing like search engine optimization. And we do a lot in the content space as well for businesses. So while I was running that business, I was a couple of years in, and we were doing a lot of, well, not a lot, but I was presenting at TAFE, New South Wales. I was presenting at the Department of Education down in Canberra. There's some of their roundtable events representing tradespeople, because I was the only one on that table there without a .gov.edu email address.
Must have been very strange.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think it was stranger for them because I was sort of the only non-tertiary educated, if you will, most educated person on the table there, and I probably had the most to say. So that was good, and it was very well received. But I wasn't really reaching the masses like I would like to have done. So I did a bit of brainstorming, and at that time, podcasting was sort of coming into fashion, and I sort of researched it a bit, and then I tied it back to, the type of customers that we like to work with, and typically our customers are people that are wanting to grow their business. They might have been down the path of having a crappy website at some point. Now they're ready to take it to the next level, and they're keen to learn, and they're keen to invest in education and things like that. And I thought, well, this could be good. If I start a podcast, then I know the people that are going to be listening to the podcast are typically the people that I'm going to be wanting to work with. And so it was kind of a bit of a lead magnet qualifier. And that was well over 3.5 years ago now. We started the Site Shed. And it's now Australia's leading business podcast for tradies, with over 214 episodes, I think, live, and probably up to 230 odd recorded or something.
Which is no mean feat, I might add. It's not exactly
it's an
easy thing to do. Yeah. So you should be very proud of that one, because that's just having started out on this journey myself. This is not something you just do for fun when you feel like it.
So, like, when I started, because I had a bit of a strategy where I really wanted to make sure that I was, we got a lot of traction quickly. And there's a category in iTunes called New and Noteworthy. And I sort of had a 5-week goal to get into New and Noteworthy. So I think it was 28 podcasts backlogged before I launched. And I launched the podcast, and within 5 days we hit New and Noteworthy. And we stayed there for 2.5 years, which is pretty unheard of. So it was pretty well received, and then we had loads and loads of content. And for that first year, I was, for the better part of the year, I was doing about 3 a week. It was insane. I don't know how I do it. Like, I look back at it now, I can barely do 1 a week.
Yeah.
And without a team as well. I was doing it all my own back then, and now I've got a team behind me that helps with it. But man, it was a lot of work. Yeah,
I can imagine. So leading on from that, obviously, is what do you wish you had known then, as opposed to what you know now? Like, what were the things that were the most, if you'd have known that back then, gee, that would have saved a lot of time?
Yeah, I probably, that's such a loaded question. There's so many things I would do differently if I started again. But I mean, I think it kind of comes down to, as well, when you're a little bit more established, you can afford not to be as bootstrappy. So I probably would have brought a team in earlier to do certain things and done it a little bit smarter with the way I set that up. Even finding guests and stuff, like, initially it was a bit of a struggle, and now they basically find us. So you'll know, because you're part of our Facebook community, there's over 5,000 pretty highly qualified business owners from all over the planet in there, and some amazing conversations that go on in that group. So a lot of the podcasts are fueled by conversations that happen in that community. So I probably would have started that a lot earlier. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things in hindsight which I should have done differently. And I feel like that's a general metaphor for business in general.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think everyone who's had any kind of success in business looks back and thinks, gee, if I'd have just known that, we could have been here 5 years ago rather than taking this long.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a constant learning curve.
So, I mean, obviously you do a lot of different stuff, but what's your, the main thing? What solution do you offer customers? So obviously you work with trades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we typically, like customers will come to us if they have a website that needs to be updated or they want to get better results from their website. So, a lady I've just been speaking to today, she's a builder up in Brisbane and, their website's been built, but it's never been optimized for the search engines and it doesn't really show up in any search queries. So that's kind of where we go, okay, well, let's rebuild the site so that it's built in a way that it can get you search engine results, and we can then start showcasing some of the projects you've completed, and we can really start using it as a tool for her to educate her customers and educate her potential customers to hopefully build that trust and rapport that will eventually end in a sale. So that's a pretty typical situation. We've got a business training coaching program for tradies too, called Tradie Mate Pro. And that is a brilliant program that takes businesses from, anywhere from zero, up to newly established or whatever, up to, 2-3 million in turnover. So that's been fantastic. We get a lot of good feedback from that. So, yeah, I mean, the way that we it's not so much a product specific fit as it is more of a solution based fit. So when we look at companies, we sort of scope them and we say, okay, well, you're telling me that you're not happy with the website. You're telling me that you're not showing up in searches. You're telling me that you don't nurture your customers and you have no way of, managing your database. So then we've put together a suite of tools that will help them get to where they need to go in regard to that.
Yeah, so you cover a lot of bases, but they're all sort of interlinked bases, obviously. So that's important.
Yeah, I mean, it all ties together effectively through the website, but yeah, we try and make it as non-confusing as possible, which is sometimes a struggle.
Yes, some of the basic concepts of business can be difficult sometimes to be not confusing. So, so what an interesting one for me, because this is something that I get asked a lot. What's a common myth about your particular industry, and how would you debunk it?
There's loads. When you're in the digital space, everyone's got their opinions and experiences for right or wrong. I mean, it's not necessarily specific, I think, to the digital space. I mean, everyone speaks to someone who knows someone that's had an experience with something or other. So I think typically what people sometimes struggle to value the most is the importance of having like an asset, like a website built in a way that can benefit the growth and facilitate the growth ongoing for the company. So being able to, there are people, well, I can get a $500 website built on Fiverr
Yes.
or something like that. And you go, okay, we'll go for it. But is that going to help you get to where you want to go in terms of, attracting the right customers? And is it going to enable you to add and create SEO friendly content and all this kind of stuff, So it's sometimes just a better way to go about things, to have something built, corrected and handed over to you. It's all in place. That maybe it'll cost you a little bit more, but it'll probably save you quite a formidable amount in the long run. And again, as I say, this is probably common to anybody out there. Like you're speaking to builders or plumbers, and it's the same thing. You can always get people that are undercut, but at the end of the day, it's really, you get what you pay for.
Yes, very much.
And I think there's a lot of myths as well around. Well, maybe not myths, but I mean, there's a lot of misinformation around the digital space in terms of marketing, what works, what doesn't. And then there's also a lot of grey areas between a lot of web designers and a lot of marketers.
I love the speech marks.
Like a web designer will go and build you a beautiful website, but they don't actually understand from a marketing perspective very often, what that means in order to get that website converting for you. So we kind of come at it at a different angle. We sort of look at look at it from a marketing perspective. Oh, my camera's just gone again. Look at it from a marketing perspective and sort of reverse engineer it that way.
Yeah. And so, because one of the tricky things about the internet, even though I have a technical background, is that places like Google and they keep changing the rules for you all the time, don't they? So what fits a year ago doesn't necessarily do the same thing as it does now.
Typically, that's a myth, I suppose, that we could debunk, because when you think about, Google, at the end of the day, their goal is to help your customer or your website visitor get the answers they're looking for through a search query with the path of least resistance. So where people come unstuck with, well, like you're saying, algorithm changes and things like that, is they try and cut corners. So fundamentally, if you build the website right from the beginning and you incorporate best practice when it comes to creating content, and you're not trying to, pull the wool over Google's eyes, because that, like, I hate to say it, but they're probably smarter than you, and they will find out.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
So, I mean, we never have issues with that ever, like with any of the sites or any of our clients, because they just do things the right way. And sometimes that means that results might take a little bit longer, but it does also mean that, in the event of an algorithm change, they're not going to lose everything.
Yeah, so when you get them to the front page of the Google search, they'll stay there rather than it being a short-term fix.
And yeah, and I mean, that's another thing as well, the front page of Google myth, like it does take work. And if someone can tell you they can get you to the front page of Google, organically within a month, you can almost 100% guarantee they're cutting corners somewhere, and they're doing something that could end up in, them being penalized. And there's loads of updates that happen all the time that just constantly chop these things back, the Penguin update and all these different things like that, which are basically, they go looking for people that are cutting corners, and then they shred them.
Well, like you said, Google are trying to make it a good experience for the user. So they want people to get what they're supposed to get, not people who are cutting the corners. So,
right.
So that's that's informed me about a few things that I didn't know. So that's good. Now, just another left field sort of question. What's something that you failed at? I've got quite a long list of these things. But it doesn't have to necessarily be business related. It can be a failure of managing to learn how to do a Rubik's Cube, which I failed at recently.
Yeah, I feel like, and I'm sure I'm not alone here, but where I am today is basically a series of failures. So over the years, I've sort of learned to more celebrate the failures and not call them failures, but call them lessons. Oh man, loads of things. Hiring the wrong way, onboarding the wrong way. That's been a big one. And that's like an ongoing thing, which we're starting to get a bit better at now. But in terms of growing team, and I know a lot of our audience out there, especially tradies, that's one of the biggest issues that they're having in their business is that whole issue around staff recruitment, staff onboarding, training and retention. And so it is a bit of an art form. So that's, when we put a lot of focus on that in the podcast too, having a lot of guests that are experts in that sort of stuff to talk about those topics, which has been fantastic. So yeah, I mean, I would say fundamentally, probably one of the biggest failures is not growing the team efficiently.
I like that.
Yeah. And by that, I mean, it's really easy to bring somebody into a position and say, this is your job, go and do it. And when they don't do it, throw all your tools out of the pram and carry on like a dickhead and blame them. When the reality is, like, as a leader, you need to take that on board and say, well, the reason that they've not been able to complete this role correctly is because I've not equipped them correctly, and their failure is my failure. And that's happened over and over again. And, when that happens, it has, a lot of ricocheting effects when you're talking about team culture and all that kind of stuff. So you've got to be really careful as your business grows that you're doing it in a way that's sustainable and you're equipping people, and people aren't sort of not sure about what they're supposed to be doing.
And it's easier said than done. We're just sort of going, there's 5 of us now in our business, and it's, I find myself, failing in some of those same ways, trying to make sure that half my job now is making sure everyone else has got enough stuff to keep them busy. And, which is good in one sense, but it's certainly different than what it used to be, where it was just me having to do everything.
Yeah, it's a big revelation we've had over the last couple of years through speaking with, some amazing guests on the show and having some really good, I suppose, a good network of people that have been there and done it, understanding that everything really ties back to, the structure of your organization, the departments, the roles, the responsibilities that all lie within, and then being able to create job roles specifically off those positions that you need to fill in, and that might be to replace you in certain areas. So if you want to stop doing X, Y, Z, like having that documented so that people go, I know what I'm doing. Here are the processes which show me how to do this. Now I can go and do it,
Yeah,
and that's
my
a
dream.
it's a time-consuming exercise, but it's the only one that delivers a consistent result.
Yeah, I think that whole working myself out of the job is the key part, and documenting that, and then being able to delegate and let people do it rather than trying to micromanage them.
Yeah, and I mean, and in theory, the processes and the systems should do that for you. So if you've built it the right way, they should be able to go to the systems and go to the standard operating procedures or whatever and look at it and go, this is how I do this task. And if they don't do it correctly, it's not their fault very often. It's often the fault of the procedure that you create or whoever's created. So you need to kind of go back and amend that. Otherwise, you're always going to be in the business coming to the rescue of people when they screw up.
Yes, and unfortunately, I'm the tech guy in our business, so there's always that downside as well. I can't train anyone else to have my knowledge about the how the computers work and stuff like that. Just one last question, a bit out of left field. What's your go-to order at your favourite restaurant? I'm always interested in what people like to. I love food, obviously, and I just like to, it's always interests me to know what people, because sometimes you get really weird answers to this. This is something I talk to people about outside of this arena, obviously. So hit me.
So I don't really have, like, my wife hates it because she's a bit of a foodie, and I'm like one of those people that eats because I need to, not because I'm like, I very rarely just go to a restaurant and I'll be like, wow, that was just the best meal ever. Like, I'm one of those people that goes to a wedding and I couldn't tell you what they had for the next day for the food. However, from an experience point of view, experiences are certainly something that I remember. So, if you go to certain restaurants and, you have a really good time there and something cool's happening, then I'll always remember that over the food. So there's been a couple of places. There's a really nice restaurant in Melbourne, which I love, called Mamacita's. It's a Mexican joint. And that we always go there when we're in Melbourne. I couldn't even tell you the dish we order. We just go in there and order probably way too many margaritas, which is why we can't remember the food. But yeah, I'm only a bit of a sucker as well for even the old Sunday pub roast. I love a bit of.
I actually thought you might say like a hot dog in the outfield at the baseball or something.
I hate hot dogs.
Really?
That's one thing I won't eat. And you're right. I'm a baseball fan, but I won't touch a hot dog.
Wow.
Mystery meat.
I just thought that was part of the whole experience, that you had to do that part to enjoy the whole process.
Thankfully, it's not.
Well, thanks very much for your time, Matt. And now we'll put all your contact details in below, but if you'd like to just give people a bit of a brief rundown on how they can get in contact with you, that would be great.
Yeah, well, if you guys want to tune into the podcast, you can now. We're a video podcast as well. So if you're part of the Facebook community, you can head across to, you can search Facebook groups, you can search the Site Shed, and you can jump in there. I know Shane's in there as well. So you're more than welcome to join that. That won't cost you anything. There's some really good high-level conversations that go on in there. That's probably the best place to get me, actually, through the Facebook group. Otherwise, and that's called The Site Shed. The podcast is The Site Shed, so you can search that wherever you listen to your podcasts. And then if you want to jump into YouTube, you can watch them as well through YouTube or through the Facebook group. And then Tradie Web Guys, if you're after digital solutions, websites, marketing, that kind of stuff, tradiewebguys.com.au is the website there. So business coaching and training, Tradie Mate Pro, TRADIE, Mate, MATE, Pro, PRO.com.au. It's another good one. That's a brilliant program. So, and if you use the code, actually, if you go to tradie.com.au/shed for the site shed. You'll get the first month for nothing. So you can dip your toe in and you can test it out yourself. But
I'll make sure that link goes in the bottom.
Yeah, that's pretty much where you get me. That's probably where I'm most active. I don't do Twitter anymore. I don't do much Instagram. I sort of canned all those things because they just suck too much time. And I'm really only on Facebook when I'm in the group. So yeah.
So no new projects on the agenda. You seem like you're got so much free time at the moment that you should be doing really a few more things.
Yeah, I've got an 8-month-old project, which is getting fatter and fatter every day. So she's taking up a lot of time. But no, I'm pretty keen just to stick with what I've got at the moment. And that's another thing, I suppose, you learn after a while, that all the shiny object syndrome of you and sparkly just detracts you from what you should be doing.
I've that's something I'm working on myself at the moment, the shiny object thing. Just focus on one thing at a time and get that right.
Yeah, it's a big thing. So, I mean, I think that's the blessing and the curse of being an entrepreneur. You've always got your eyes open for new ideas, but they do detract you sometimes from what you should be doing.
Yes, you have to set the goal of where you want to be in the one thing you're doing, and then once you've reached that, then you can start looking at other options.
Yeah, and I found one of the big like a big tip here for anyone that's starting out in business, or maybe anyone that's in business and they really want to improve things like productivity. One of the things that it's been able to help a lot lately is really just controlling your calendar and like being able to. It's called time blocking, but effectively, if you can allocate, say, 30 minutes, like I use one of these little go-to timer things here. And, I can hit that and I just don't get disturbed during that time. And it's amazing how much work you can get done when you're actually focused on a specific task, and if the phone rings, I don't answer it. I mean, the phone gets answered from me anyway, but just try and clear distractions, and it really does make an amazing difference. Because it's all good having goals and, all that kind of stuff, but it's the baby steps leading up that get you there. It's not just all of a sudden bang, goal done. It's all those little micro steps that get you there. And I found for me that time blocking has been really useful.
I actually do that in my calendar. I actually said schedule time. This is for sales related stuff. This is for marketing. Yep. This is otherwise you get to the end of the day and you think, what actually did I get done today? I don't remember it being very effective.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. My calendar's every day. It's blocked out for something.
Yeah.
And then I've got allocation times where I can do things like this. So it's a good way to do it. That way you're controlling your calendar. And I mean, by controlling your calendar, I mean, if somebody says, hey, can we jump on and do a phone call on a time slot that doesn't suit you, then you say, well, no. So we've got like calendar booking programs, which I don't know if you use those, but it's great because if somebody wants a meeting, then I can send them the link and it has my availability in it, and they can choose a time that selects them, but that fits into my calendar.
We certainly do. All right, yeah. I better wrap this up. We might be here all day talking about business-related stuff. Thanks very much for your time, and I look forward to your next podcast.
Absolutely. Well, look forward to next week then.
All right. Talk to you soon, mate.
See ya.